Welcome, everybody, to our latest State of the Market discussion when it comes to World and Nation coins. I'm Robert Wolonsky, the Communications Director here at Heritage Auctions. And as always for these particular conversations, I'm delighted to be joined by, to my far left, Cris Bierrenbach, the Executive Vice President of International Numismatics here at Heritage. And sitting between us, the Director of International Numismatics, Sam Spiegel. Gentlemen, always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thanks for being here. I wanted to, we got a lot to cover. We haven't done one of these in a few months. So we're going to look a little bit back at the end of last year and moving forward. But I wanted to begin with something that has been much on my mind of late. Because when I got here 2 years ago, I was sort of led to believe that, hey, comic books and video games and urban art are all kind of the hip categories, and coins, the foundation of Heritage Auction, numismatics, was kind of a thing that was for a different, older clientele. But a few weeks ago, I read a piece in the New York Times talking about how younger investors or younger collectors had gotten into the numismatics. And it wasn't simply about investing for them. It was about actually collecting something tangible, something historic, and something significant. And I wanted to talk to the two of you about the changing face of the numismatic collector. And Cris, I'll begin with you. Is that something that you have noticed recently? Is that something that's been happening for a while and the New York Times just caught on to it?
It's fairly new. It's been happening, I suppose, over the last 18 to 24 months, more specifically, where you have a younger demographic coming in. A lot of these, cryptocurrency investors that have done well for themselves with these coins are actually interested now in buying physical coins. Right. And the thing that I always thought of that notion that one day our demographic would be so old as to sort of end the market, and
coins would just be stuck somewhere forever.
Yes, well, I don't see that as true at all. I see more people coming in. I see not only coins. It's really the ultimate collectible. It's been collected for 25 centuries. It's something that you can easily collect with, just taking money out of circulation, and you can develop that for the rest of your life, and you can go any direction that you want. And I think all things considered, the historical aspect, the interest in economics, and just, the interest in future value as an investor, I think numismatics is going to be interesting to a new generation of collectors and the generation after that. I don't think, and people come in for different purposes, right? I mean, right. The reasons now are different. The market is much more dynamic, and we love to be part of that ride. So,
Sam?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Cris said. As he was saying, numismatics is sort of the oldest collectible form.
Sure.
Right.
We all collected coins at some point, I think. Even those of us who don't collect them now collected them once upon a time.
Right. And going back to the Italian Renaissance, I mean, that's where you sort of have the foundation of modern coin collecting in my mind. And it has survived all sorts of changes in society and the economy and ways in which people collect. And, it's still around, and I think it's going to continue to be around for a long time. And I think, as far as the newer generation of people getting into it, one thing that I think appeals to them, at least from sort of an investment or a store of value perspective, is that coins are the oldest collectible which has third-party grading, right? And so you see a lot of people investing in alternative assets or collectibles or sort of non-standard investment vehicles to put their money in. And with coins being the oldest third-party grading collectible back to the 80s, it gives people the confidence to know that this is a market that's been around and established and is highly liquid relative to other assets like that.
It's interesting to me in as much as, my dad died a few weeks ago, and in going through his closet, I discovered that my father was a collector of coins, and I had no idea. So it's always interesting to me sort of where you discover people have an interest in, a passion for the hobby. And it seemed to me in that piece that this wasn't simply about investing for a lot of these folks, that it was about the actual collecting of, the gathering of, in terms of the knowledge, passion, and interest in these coins. And I sort of wondered, you guys have such a fascinating part of this market, the world and ancient coins. And I wonder, is there a different kind of collector for those coins than there is for the American?
Yeah, I suppose the profile is a little different, with people with more, larger interest in world history.
Yeah.
And, they have family history, they're Italian immigrants, and therefore they might, they might collect Italian coins, or something that's dear to their hearts is always a good motivator for collecting. And also the opportunity and the avenue for knowledge and the quest of and the journey of collecting, and of hunting these things down. And we see, a lot of our friends are on that journey. It's really entertaining for those of us who like this field. It gives people a lot of pleasure. They spend it's a true hobby, in the sense that, it takes people away from their daily lives and into the world of history and beauty of beautiful objects that tells, older stories, and combining that with the beautiful opportunities they present as investment, long-term investments, and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think in the way it differs from U.S. coin collectors, I give this example when people are doing tours of the building and I'm trying to introduce our department to new employees or guests or clients or whoever. If you take every U.S. coin, type, date, denomination, mint mark, from the beginning of U.S. coins to present, you get something like 30,000 different U.S. coins. And when you take just basic world coin types from 1600 to present, it's 400,000 different types. And we're dealing with over 2,000 years of history before that. Right. And when you add in all the metals, tokens, patterns, other sorts of exonumia that we're supposed to be responsible for, it's literally millions and millions of different types of objects that come up in our category. And so I think we handle a lot of material that is just more interesting, that you had never seen before. Right. So if you think about what we sold last year, how many coins did we sell last year that hadn't been seen on the market in 5 or 10 or longer,
quite a few.
Versus how many U.S. coins did we handle that hadn't been seen?
Well, to that point, Paramount, was last year, and Paramount, I believe, if I recall our discussions correctly, included many coins you had never actually even seen before, correct?
Right, and coins we didn't even know existed.
Yes, well, the majority of that collection is special, but I think what Sam is getting at is that U.S. is a highly commoditized market, right, where it's so developed and it's so large that it has enough volume, and we have enough track record. Our archives are so well developed that basically any coin that comes up, you can look at its history, right, and you can make a very educated guess as to what this next one is going to sell for. As with us, it's every sale that we have. Just yesterday, we got a group of Australian coins that we got yesterday. A complete set of proof sovereigns and half sovereigns of the 1850s of Australia. Incredibly rare items. I'd never seen any of them.
Really?
And we got the complete set, which is 1853, 55, 56, the half and full sovereigns, 6 coins. And then we got a 1920s sovereign, which is the key sovereign for the Australian series. So I saw 7 coins yesterday I'd never seen before.
What's that like for you?
It's great fun. I mean, when something like that comes up, I'm always like, wait a minute, I want to come over there. I want to see them. Whenever I see an exchange where something like that comes in, I always want to stop the train and so I can get on it and take part of that and see it. Obviously, the majority of things that we handle are everyday product, but it is much more often and frequent for us, basically every week, than it is for U.S. coins, for example, where they might get a pretty coin, something rare, but it's something that they've seen before.
Sure.
For us, it's much more opportunistic and just learning experience. We might get we had a whole collection of early French coins that had hammered coins that had several issues and never seen before. So that's an opportunity for you to visit a whole new area, look at the coins, look at the transitions, so it's fun every day.
So before we look back, I do want to look ahead. When are the Australian coins coming to market?
So the Australian coins are coming to the auction that we're holding lot viewing at Central States. And I believe the actual dates of the auction now we've settled at March 5th.
May 5th.
Oh, excuse me. May 5th, 6th, and 7th with lot viewing at Central States, which is the last week of April.
So just a few months away.
Yes. Yes.
So let's look a few months back, because we were last year in September. Obviously, we had sales in October and December and other sales in between. I want to talk to you guys first about what stood out for you at the end of last year. Certainly, there was a significant growth at most of our categories here at Heritage with a $1.4 billion year for the first time, cracking the $1 billion mark. World and ancient coins were a significant part of that. So I do want to talk about what you learned about last year and what you saw last year. Given the multiple seven-figure lots, given all of the things that occurred in the fall, what you took into the winter. Sam?
Well, you're right. Last year was absolutely incredible for the company overall, and especially for our department. I keep pretty close track of the numbers, and our last year was double what we had done in our prior best year ever, which was 2020. So last year we did a little over $130 million worth of world and ancient coins, which is an amazing accomplishment. And as far as I know, I think that's the most world and ancient coins any auction company has ever sold ever before in the world, which is something that I think our team takes a lot of pride in, that we sort of set the new bar for what's possible. And, in terms of sort of what I saw in the market last year, it kind of solidified a lot of ideas that we developed in 2020, in that, as much as we like going to coin shows, we realize that coin shows aren't really necessary for a successful auction, which is very much not the case 20 years ago. And going along with that is another change that we've developed in our signature auctions, which is one thing we can talk about more when we get to talking about the January auction. In that, when I started at Heritage a decade ago, the goal was to make the signature auctions as big as possible. And now our goal has been a complete 180, where it's to make the signature auctions as small as possible. Because what we're realizing is that having more sales throughout the year of smaller lot counts is easier for us, operationally. It's appreciated by our client because they don't have to deal with 6,000 lots trying to figure out what their bids are. And it keeps people, engaged and entertained throughout the year, like always new content. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, the model was we'd have 3 or 4 major auctions a year, and that was it, right? Now we have auctions pretty much twice a week on average now. When you count the select auctions, Wednesday and Thursday night, we have showcase auctions ending nearly every Sunday, and then 6 signature auctions a year, including the 2 in Hong Kong. So the big change last year, which we started in 2020, is more sales throughout the year of fewer lots each, even though we're ultimately selling more in aggregate.
Do you find that they attract a different customer, client, collector than the smaller sales do than the signatures? Because obviously the prices may be significantly different in the signature. So it's maybe easier to introduce somebody in the smaller sales, where they're maybe easier to digest and perhaps easier to afford.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, some clients, it depends. Certain clients collect all over, the value-wise. But certainly our showcase and our select auctions are great doors of entry for new clients who are just starting to collect. They're just starting to develop their collection. They're very diverse. The select auctions are about half of ancient coins. So you have everything from Greek to Roman, Byzantine, and then half, there's 200-300 modern coins of all over the world. So there's something for everybody there. And then we have the monthly showcase auctions that are thematic. So there's Latin American collections coming up, collection of English coins, a collection of French coins. So it targets different groups at different times. But most importantly is that collectors love to have different things to look at all the time. And this is what allows the new system of having all these sales, all these smaller sales take place at the same time, is that it allows people to have different content, fresh content. You come every week, and there's new things to see, new research to be done, and it's more engaging to client. And for us, the last year, people have spent more time with us, more engagement, more people signing up on the website, spending more minutes a day in their collecting endeavors. There is a mainstream feeling that, the term collectible sometimes is considered negative, has a negative connotation, right? Collectibles. It's not really art. It's not really investment.
Well, we talked about it the other day. It's lunch. Collectibles as a lunchbox.
Lunchbox, right? Correct. And I think there's a bigger understanding of the mainstream that, there's a lot of advanced collectors that look at these things, do their homework, spend a tremendous amount of time, dedicate a good portion of their lives to learning about these objects to make educated decisions. So it turns out that what we've seen a lot of times over time, particularly over the long run, numismatic investments tend to do very well.
Right.
And that's because collectors are engaged, right? It's different is if you put, your money in a mutual fund, you put it there.
No fun.
No fun. There's nothing to be. Maybe, maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down. With coins, with comic books, other items of iconic interest, it gives you much pleasure along the ride. Plus, if you do it right, it's going to be a good investment too, particularly over the long run.
Look, it has fascinated me to no end, and I want to get to these highlights, and obviously talk about October Platinum and other things. And the 7-figure lots absolutely fascinates me. That's the most last year was the most we've sold in terms of 7-figure lots in World of Nations.
Yeah,
correct?
Correct, by far.
The other day I sort of fell down the YouTube hole and saw videos about World of Nation coins and American coins getting tens and hundreds of thousands of views. And it opened my eyes to the fact that there is a larger collecting world out there that has really taken a great interest in this area to an extent that I guess wasn't aware. And we talk about the investment opportunities, but I also wonder if this isn't significantly about the historical value of these coins. And as you see these values increase, obviously there's a collectible or an investment aspect to it as well. But I assume that there's a collector who's entered into this realm who has taken great interest in the historical significance of these coins. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's easier to start collecting ancient or world or ancient coins or U.S. coins than it is, say, historical documents or fine art or something like that, where the price point to begin collecting is much lower than for some of these other things, as well as I mentioned earlier, third-party grading gives people the confidence that they know what they're buying is genuine and accurately described. So, if you compare coins to fine art, and I know there's a very vast difference between the two. If you want to start collecting early Impressionist paintings or something, that's kind of a hard market to break into. But if you want to start collecting British coins, maybe you can't afford a $500,000 Victoria Una in the Lion 5 pounds, but you can afford a nice Victoria shilling or something like that. And then, that's sort of your entry point. And maybe you're not engaging at the top level of the market, but you're still engaging with the market and this sort of collectible that you can hold in your hand and, appreciate history firsthand. So
let's start with October, because October Platinum Night of the Signature Auction. And by the way, we are taking questions as always. TommyN@ha.com. If you don't want to do a question, if you want to be anonymous. If you want to just go ahead and drop it in here, we'll make sure. In fact, I think we already have some questions. So we'll certainly get to those throughout the course of the conversation. That is why people like coming to these, because how often do you get these two handsome gentlemen to take your questions at any given moment? Well, probably anytime they pick up their phone. So let's talk about the October. What made that significantly different from the sales that had preceded it throughout the year? Because we began last year, if I'm not mistaken, with the best January we'd ever had, but it didn't let up. In fact, I believe this January has also been the best January we had since last January, which was the best one ever. So I do want to begin with the ANA. I want to make sure sort of how the September Long Beach had gone and kind of what the remaining impact of COVID has had on this market and this area. So Sam?
Sure. So up until 2019, I think we started in Long Beach in 2012 through 2019, we would have a September Long Beach auction. Right. And then we'd have an ANA Platinum Night auction just about 4 weeks before that. And in 2020, when COVID forced the cancellation of shows, we moved what was the September Long Beach auction to the first week of November. Right. Because that just makes a lot more sense with our schedule, because we have 4 signature auctions a year, aside from the 2 in Hong Kong, in January, April, August, and it used to be September, and now it's late October, early November. So roughly every 3 months. And last year, even though the Long Beach show happened in late September, we decided to stick with the schedule that we had set up in 2020 and have our fall signature auction in late October. And that our clients seemed to appreciate it. Our cataloging staff certainly appreciated it, not back-to-back sales like that.
Do you get feedback from clients in terms of what they would like to see when something like that pops up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We hope so. I mean, we welcome and we need the feedback from our audience, which, it's a lot of smart people.
Right.
And they know their collections, they know numismatics, and they help us. I mean, people help us with cataloging, correcting errors that we make, telling, and we appreciate that, because we can, if we do tens of thousands of lots a year, it's nice to have an audience that's ready to help us and to point out our mistakes. And I think mostly, last year, 2021, and all these sales were great. Last year was incredible for us. We see just increased demand across the board, more people interested, more action, more activity. People seem comfortable coming to the website, using mobile to bid. We see a migration that's very clearly happening from people to bidding on the book to bidding live.
Right, and that goes back to having the smaller sales where...
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about,
Yes.
the impact of the smaller sale, because even though the sales may have been smaller, you have the prices realized has jumped significantly.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I find that to be a very interesting correlation.
Yeah, when we talk about smaller is the number of lots.
Right.
So what goes in,
853, I think.
in last October. Right.
what goes into that equation is a lot of curating of the sales and sort of separating and building the auctions that we do online and the select and the showcases in order to make these larger events smaller in the number of lots, but really significant items and really diverse, the best in the ancients, the best in world coins, and we present it that way. And it's simpler for our audience to navigate these sales if they're smaller. They don't have to wait 3-4 days. They don't have to wait hours and hours for their lots to come up.
Right.
It's within the hour or within a couple of hours. So it's simpler that way. So, and then it allows, again, for us to have interesting content for collectors at all times. So
let's talk about the Hong Kong sales as well, because I'm fascinated by those. When we started doing these a couple of years ago, I was just kind of interested in the impact of the market, and I'm sort of fascinated by the fact that December, if I'm not mistaken, was the first signature Hong Kong that we had. Is that
It was
right?
the first platinum
First
night.
platinum night.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. First platinum night. So tell me what that meant and what difference that made.
So the Platinum Knight is a brand that, we're very proud of, and that is very unique to Heritage.
Right.
When
It's the best of the best of the best.
Right. And when people hear Platinum Knight, they know what that is.
Right.
And so we had added a Platinum Knight to all of our domestic signature auctions. But last December, we finally made the decision to add a Platinum Knight and bring that brand to the Hong Kong venue. And I think the Platinum Knight was only 120 lots or something like that. But it was certainly, the highlight of Asian numismatics for that month, because it was just the best of the best, as you said. And I'm sure there were a lot of collectors tuning in to watch our Platinum Night sale, just purely, for entertainment and education. Right. You just tune in. It's like the Super Bowl of Asian coins.
Well, I don't know why we don't market it that way.
No, last year we saw strength across the board. The Chinese market was incredibly active. British continues to be very strong. And, I was talking to somebody was asking me this before, Latin America, starting with Mexico and going down all the way down to Chile and Argentina. I think we're seeing a lot of interest. It's an incredibly diverse and beautiful area of numismatics. And what we're seeing now is, again, a more acceptance of third-party grading, and sort of almost a regular. It's how we regulate the market, is how the market is becoming modern. And what happened here in the U.S. starting with U.S. coins in the 80s and 90s is still gradually happening across the world. And it's fun to be on that ride, because if you're collecting and you have good eye for quality before that development takes place, like with a lot of these,
the Cape Coral of Latin America that we sold last August.
It was one of the first ones where.
Feel free to hold up the catalog.
So this is a group of Latin American coins that we sold that were, from Cape Coral, and Cape Coral collector, incredible, has incredible eyes and has essentially curated everything and is ahead of his time when it comes to quality. And what third-party grading allows is sort of to show the collecting audience where the rarity is.
Right.
Okay. Because before, you just thought of rarity as an issue, right? So a $1794 is rare because it's a $1794. And what the market, what the learning that goes through with third-party grading is that there's rarity on every issue. You just need to find out where it becomes rare in the condition spectrum. So maybe maybe the coin is very common in VF, but in AU, it's extremely rare. Right. So that sort of thing is happening in Latin America, starting to happen. You see prices of mint state or high quality coins becoming geometrically higher than standard condition. So that's just beginning. And people who catch the market in the beginning, obviously in the long run, and numismatics has to be the long run. There's no, there's no quick turnaround really with coins. I mean, it's a lifelong pursuit, and people can be active and dynamic with their collecting. They can be buying and selling all along, right, and improving their collection. But I think that's one area that I think is quite interesting right now.
Yeah, but especially in a category where coins are being discovered every day. I mean, you talked about the fact you've seen the Australian coins that you'd never seen before. We talked about Paramount last year, coins that you've never seen, which I assume is interesting in as much as that it impacts also sort of the value of the market too, because when you bring things that no one knew existed or no one had actually had ever been able to hold, I assume that reshapes in some ways the market, and that I assume is some of what happened last year. If given that was in fact the best year any company had ever had with world and ancient coins, I assume that has a significant part in it, right? The fact that you're bringing to market things that are heretofore unknown and unseen.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes it more interesting. I mean, everything has sort of parameters. You can value is I think is personally, I think it's more objective in numismatics than it is in fine and decorative arts, for example. So because you even for coins that we
Really?
had, yes, even for coins that we hadn't seen before, you can sort of draw parallels to see, you know, this is a large gold coin of Austria.
Yeah.
And how about the other large gold coins of Austria? How many of those exist versus this one? And how many of, you know, how much did that one sell for? And so you can draw parallels and have an idea, right? The idea is it might be a wide range of value, but certainly is great fun to see new things. And because it's so diverse, and because it's so wide, and because there's so many coins, basically an infinite number of types, it makes a great opportunity for collectors to find new areas. And we're seeing this with, particularly with U.S. coins, with U.S. coin collectors. You see people becoming interested in, for example, the coins that were circulating in this country before the Americans were issuing our coins starting in 1792, essentially. So what was happening before then? There were coins circulating here that were made in other American mints, pillar dollars, Brazilian gold coins that were you know, regulated by U.S. goldsmiths before. So, you know, they're diversifying into a market that seems of a greater opportunity. You know, what I hear a lot of U.S. coin collectors and dealers say is like, well, you know, when I look at those world and ancient coins, I always seem, you know, they seem cheap to me. You know, they're saying like, here's a coin, there's 3 known, and it's 150,000. If it was an American coin, would it be, you know, maybe it was 1.5 million. If it was the same coin, it was worth 10 times more. So, you know, I always say the same thing. You're welcome to start playing with us. You know,
you're welcome to bid higher.
Very friendly bunch. And
well, let's talk about some of the, because I want to look at coins. I want folks to see some of the highlights from December. I want to look at the tiger dollar that sold for, you know, a not insignificant amount of money. Because I want to talk about the fact that, were you surprised by how well this did in Hong Kong?
Yeah, this was
seeing it now.
Yeah, what you have up on the screen there, that's the first example of the Mukden tiger dollar that we have ever handled. And so we had some idea, though, what it would sell for, because this is a MS62 graded example, and there was a 64 that just so happened to have sold in another auction house earlier in the year, which sold for what, 2.25 million or thereabouts.
Yeah, 228.
Right. So, you know, that being a 64, go for 228. This being a 62, you can sort of, as Cris was saying, extrapolate roughly what this is going to sell for. But nonetheless, and this I think speaks to the strength of the market, and I'd like to think the strength of our platform and outreach.
And the strength of you.
Yeah.
Your personal strength.
This 62 wound up selling for 2.16, just a hair under what that 64 example. And typically you would think there'd be a much larger spread between a 64 and a 62, but you know, this is just one of a few known examples. So, you know, you don't have that many opportunities to take it.
See, I find this fascinating in as much as that you can actually see a correlation across categories. You know, Mickey Mantle 52 tops, the 10 used to be the thing, but now a 9 and an 8 sell for what used to be the 10 price. Same with an Action number 1 or a Detective 27 in comics. There is sort of, as things at the high level begin to go even higher, the things below it tend to
the market follows the high end.
And I assume that that's the way the market has always gone. Having been here for 2 years, I'm beginning to kind of see it, but it seems like it's accelerated in the last couple of years. Is that fair?
I would say so. I mean, what we see accelerating is the search for quality.
Yeah.
So things, and it's not just, you know, the rarity again is in the quality, but we see the action whenever it's something that is extraordinary, quality wise, and maybe it's not a particularly rare coin, but you see just on the action and the activity on that specific item that it's what everybody is interested in. Is you know, you might have a very rare coin, but if it has a hole in it, you know, before the collecting culture was that I want to fill my holes. I want to have a complete date run of 2 escudos of Peru. But if you have 168 dates of 2 escudos of Peru, who wants 168 dates of the same identical coin, right? Now the culture is, I want 2 or 3, but I want them to just be gorgeous. I don't want them to have any defects. I want them to be as struck. And that is a clear direction that we see the market going. And again, whenever something of quality, of might be silver, gold, copper, shows up, the demand just goes through the roof.
It reminds me of something that Bob Simpson, noted coin collector and Texas Rangers co-owner, said to me a couple of years ago, which is that he'd rather buy a coin in a lesser grade if it's more beautiful than the coin in a higher grade. That he looks for the appearance as opposed to simply the grade of the coin.
Right, and I think we've talked about this maybe last time, looking at the sometimes you'll see a lower grade example sell for more than a higher grade example purely because of eye appeal.
Right.
And I think that speaks to the sophistication of the market, where they're not going purely based on the number on the holder. They're going by the actual coin itself.
Right.
I mean, yeah, there's certain things that everybody looks for in a coin, but then there's certain things that is a matter of taste also.
Yeah.
Like one classical line is like, people are like tone coins versus white coins, right? That's the coin might be the same grade, but personally, I like tone coins. I like color on the coin, but some people like the coin to be as struck, so bright white.
I'm fascinated. Why do you prefer that?
Because I like colors.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So if there's rainbow on it, if there's blue and red and it's changing, maybe it looks a little bit like a sunset. Like, I find that very pretty.
Yeah, it sort of underscores the originality of the coin, right?
Yeah.
If it's toned.
Yeah, it aged that way. But American collectors, a lot of them prefer white coins, no toning,
right?
Kept with no humidity ever touched that coin. We sort of like, if it's natural, the toning becomes very pretty for the most part in the coin. So
yeah, and you see that change in different collecting areas. And I don't have an example picked out ahead of time, but you see that in the Chinese market, especially, where toned coins get a big premium over untoned coins. Yeah. Just because that market sort of puts a larger premium and emphasis on originality and toned surfaces. Yeah.
Before we get to some questions, and I know we have several lined up, I want to talk about the whiskered dollar, which the long whiskered pattern dollar, which was also another 7-figure coin in Hong Kong as well. What made this so significant to y'all, and given the fact that I believe we sold one for about half this earlier in the year,
or even less?
We see that this is sort of a rare coin that we handle once a year or so, something like that.
It's not. I mean, it's a classic Chinese issue, long whiskered pattern, and very much in demand. And we've sold them before, and again, I remember a time that it's not that long ago where those things were 1/10 of the price of what they are now.
Yeah.
And or less. So what we're seeing the Chinese, and it's interesting, because how do you measure the markets, right? If you're a collector, I mean, people are waiting to see if they want to sell, or if they're buying, they think the market is too high. For us, it's the market is a little bit like the wind. If you're sailing, right, you have no choice. You just sail whatever wind you have. For us,
you're like a Christopher Cross song.
So for us, it's the same thing. We present these coins, and our audience decides. And obviously, the Chinese market right now is incredibly active. This was a pretty coin.
Yeah, but we had a 63 last June sell for $552,000. So to sort of more or less double in price in 6 months is really something really impressive.
So does that surprise you, or are you expecting that significant of a price or value increase over that 6-month period? I mean, when it sells for 125 after going for 552 6 months earlier, do you go, wait, we need to stop and really think about what's happening here?
I'm going on my 15th year at Heritage, and I can tell you that I'm always surprised at our auctions. and positively surprised.
Yeah.
I'm always like too low. I always think, things are going to sell for a little bit less than they actually sell. And lately the percentage that I'm wrong has been increasing.
Congratulations.
Yes,
That's clearly
thank
good
you.
news for you.
But of course, we're wonderfully happy for our consigners.
Right.
It's wonderful for them, and it really speaks to. And this is across. I'm addicted to watching heritage auctions on Heritage Live from every category, and it just amazes me how effective it is to reach collectors. How we have an audience for all of these auctions that we have happening all the time, and sometimes I think, wow, do we have too much? Do we have too many auctions? Like, can our audience handle it? And the audience can handle it, and it just speaks to the confidence that we can provide our consigners with to say, the biggest protection, the biggest guarantee, quote unquote, that you have is that your items are going to be exposed to the best audience out there.
Right.
So
1.5 million client collectors worldwide. Increased to like 250,000 just last year.
This last year was incredible.
Yeah.
I guess more people, signing up, interested on these things. And again,
all right, I tell you what, Tommy, if you don't mind, if you would line us a couple of questions. Oh, you begin with the longest one here. In your opinion, are these prices, and this is a good subject for us to get to, are these prices a new normal? I have seen fairly common foreign gold coins triple in price in the last 24 months, seemingly out of nowhere, to the point we were just discussing. Moving forward on these more readily available coins, estimates and sold prices are based on historical sales. Are we in for these new prices for quite some time to come?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but and the market is what it is. Like, we don't know what the future is going to hold. We can look at the past and see what lessons and what kind of track record we have. I think two things happened last year. We had more buyers, and then the market went up as well. So it was there was a bigger pie, and
Right.
Heritage got a bigger piece of that pie. Is this a new normal? I mean, the prices sometimes, most of the times it's cyclical. Nothing goes up and up forever. But I find impossible, and I've never known anybody that is able to time the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really, it's really difficult to say, and people ask us this all the time. Should we wait a year? Should we wait 3 years to see if prices come back up? Or should we wait 3 years to see if prices go higher? The chance is 50-50. Maybe it's going to be higher, maybe it's going to be lower. We have no idea. It has much more to do with your personal journey in collecting. And if you've gotten to a point where that collection or that part of the collection, you're done with that, then that's the answer. And that's when the time is to sell.
What I would add on to that, and that sort of goes back to what you were saying, how many new bidders that we've added last year, is that there are more collectors in the market now. And so while, prices won't keep going up indefinitely, there's going to be a correction, it'll plateau, whatever. I do think that the fact that there are more collectors in the market now will, keep it at a certain level.
Right.
So I'm not sure we're ever going to return to prices from 10 or 15 years ago. Maybe we go back to where prices were 12 months ago, and then it starts going back up, or who knows? As Cris said, there's no way to predict the future, but
it's the same question that guys in sports cards are asked every day. When will the bubble burst? When will that card, these cards are selling for significantly more today than they did 2, 3, 5 years ago. And the response they always have is, we have no idea. The market has changed so radically. The nature of collecting has changed, and the nature of the business has changed so radically. You simply cannot predict where it heads at this point. Tommy, I think you had a couple of other questions. This is from John. Are y'all seeing more demand from overseas buyers or U.S. clients for world coins, excluding ancients? That's an interesting caveat, John.
Yes, the answer is yes. Excluding or including ancients, the answer is yes. We have a significant presence in Asia, and there's a significant market both in Hong Kong, where we reach the mainland Chinese market, and in Japan, who has a very active, very developed and international coin market. They love British coins, love European coins.
Yeah. And so to put some numbers on that, or some statistics, I ran a study a few months ago looking at specifically our select auctions, the auctions we have every Wednesday and Thursday.
What we used to call the weekly.
We now call select. And if you look at the buyers in that auction, both by volume and by value, about 50% goes to United States-based clients, and fully half of the auction goes to overseas clients.
Really?
Yeah. And it's obviously more in our category than in US coins or comic books or elsewhere, but we are definitely seeing increased demand from overseas and increased participation from overseas. And a lot of that, as Cris was getting to, I think, has to do with our international offices. The fact that we have a Hong Kong office makes doing business with mainland China infinitely easier, and it just lowers that barrier to entry to doing business with Heritage. So, the short answer to his question is yes, absolutely.
There's a very long question I'm about to read.
Okay.
When you did this Q&A over the summer, you discussed that your estimated prices you assigned to each lot was low, and made a comment that you would rather underpromise and overdeliver to the client. With that said, the estimates are continually getting well oversold. I know that an estimate has no bearing on the hammer price because, as we all know, everything is worth what two people are willing to pay for it. But are there any thoughts to start to address those estimates and bring them closer to what might be finally recognized?
That's a great question, and that's one that we address.
Thank you.
Yes, that's one we address this, and we discuss these things all the time, because it all comes back to what's best for the viewer, what's best for the consignor, right? And he's correct that the estimates that we provide are becoming increasingly obsolete, right? Because there is more information. We provide more information on the website. And we've gotten rid of some estimates altogether. So
most
estimates don't exist anymore. For us, before, there was always estimates, even for the online sales. So for Select and Showcase, there are no estimates, and then we have no estimates for 1,000 and under.
For signature auctions, there are no estimates. We still have starting bids in the signature auction. So the only auctions where we actually have an estimate are the Platinum Night venues and the Hong Kong auctions.
Right.
Everything else, no estimates.
And we're still considering just get rid of it all, because, and the reason for that is because on the live view page, whenever you're looking at a coin, before you would get one catalog like this, you would go through it, and this is the information that you had.
Right, you don't have access to the previous sales and the previous grading, all this stuff.
So
before you want to pull up a web page, we can look at that while Cris is
before
talking
you would get a catalog, there will be a bid sheet in the front. You would look at the catalog. You would have all the information that you had was what was here.
Right.
So it would be the estimate. It will be much more significant at this time, right? Like the information that was here in the printed catalog, he would use that to fax in their bids or mail in their bids, or whatever. Now they go to ha.com, they go into the sale, and if they're looking at an 1887 Sovereign, or if they're looking at a 2 ducats of Osnabrück, they can,
which I looked at just yesterday.
Yes. So they look at the page, and on that page, it's all that is here and much, much more. And the much, much more is much more relevant than any estimate that we can give them. And then basically any information that we can write in the catalog. And that information is comparables, as you mentioned before. So all the coins of that same type and date that we've ever sold, with price, condition, in a relevant order, is going to be there available for you. That's much better and much more significant and relevant to the buyer than any estimate that we put in. And then they have population reports. They might have reference in the description for similar items that were sold previously. So it's a great question to make a long answer to a.
It was a very long question. So it deserves a very long answer.
Is we always base your decision on what's on the web page and what's in the lot view page online, because that's the most relevant information that we have, and it's all there for you. So if you want to buy that coin, on that page, scroll down on the page and look what's there. Right. And yeah, and we'll continue to, I think there's a chance in the near future, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, that we won't have any estimates at all.
Look, it's the same cross categories as well. It's not just simply something that World Nation Coins has to wrestle with. You know, original comic book art. No one predicted that Black Spider-Man costume last month would have sold for over $3 million.
Right.
There are things that simply take you by surprise.
Yes. In U.S. coins, for example, we have no estimates because there's, you know, the information that we have there is more relevant. Right. The information they have in the lot view page is more relevant than any sort of idea that we can give. And he's right that we tend to be conservative. We prefer it that way.
Why? Tell people why.
Well, because really the estimates, the impact of the estimate when somebody's reading the catalog is better if they think that seems cheap than if they think that seems expensive. So it's a simple marketing or
you also want to give people the opportunity.
Yes. So they go in and we want our starting bids to be either, if they're not at $1, we want them to be at levels that everyone would be interested in bidding at those levels.
They can have an opportunity to bid at
Exactly. We want them to be engaged in the bidding.
So
if something opens at $250,000, I immediately go, well, I certainly can't participate in that.
I mean, the way I think about opening bids is we want someone to look at the opening bid and say yes, rather than maybe, you know?
Right. And
That's
you want
critical.
to engage them. It's just simply a more engaging thing.
Yeah.
You know, I want to talk about, before we wrap up here, we've already been here for almost an hour, John.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun.
This is a very good, and if you have questions, I would get them in now because we're going to wrap it up here in about 8 or 9 minutes. Because I do want to make sure we've talked a lot about the formatting changes, showcases, and weeklies and monthlies and dailies and show platinums and all that stuff. Hourlies, I'm assuming at some point we'll just go to hourly sales.
Yeah.
I assume you'll just stand on a corner at some point and just hold an ongoing, everlasting auction.
That's not a bad idea.
We should do it.
The perpetual auction.
You know, we should do a 1-day, 24-hour marathon auction. That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
Yes.
In our branding meetings, we'll have a long conversation. But I want to talk to you about January. Got off to a significant start. And obviously, you know, after you come off a big year like last year, can you be taken by surprise by what January did and some of the results that you saw in January? And I do want to make sure that we do talk about some of the highlights from January as well.
Yeah. So as we were saying earlier, you know, we're trying to make the signature auctions as small as possible. This January auction between Platinum Night, which was during the week of the New York International Numismatic Convention, which is the show it's held in conjunction with, and the signature auction, which was the week afterward, it was only 1,900 lots. I think a little less than 1,900 lots.
The gap in between was fascinating to me too, because it caught me off guard. I'm like, wait, I'd never seen us do that.
Yeah. So the way it used to be in New York is that we would have sessions Sunday afternoon, Monday morning, Monday afternoon, and Platinum Night, Monday night. And one of the things that we realized during COVID as well that, you know, led us to shift the structure of our auctions is to have Platinum Night first, right? Lead off with the best material. As we were saying earlier, the market sort of takes its cue from the top end. And so we're Platinum Night, where we have the best of the best and going to have the most sort of eye-popping results. We now start all of our auctions with Platinum Night and then go to signature.
Right. So you just stole the comics format, is what you're saying.
I suppose so.
And it also allows for people to have a longer lot viewing period for the signature during the week.
So yeah, we had Platinum Night Monday night at the New York International, because that's the sort of event where people will attend in person, and having a room, I think, does add some value to it. And then we had lot viewing throughout the week for the signature auction the following week.
I do want to ask you about the fact that last year, at the end of last year, and the beginning of this year, there certainly was the return to the in-person coin show and the coin. And did that make a significant difference, or will that make a significant difference?
Well, to me personally, it made a great difference, because I love these shows. I love these events for the social aspect of them, and seeing your friends. And I saw people that I hadn't seen in two, 3 years, that, you know, Europeans that came over, the Swiss, Italians, Germans that were coming over. So it was great to do that. I made sure that, you know, I bought people lunches and dinners as much as I could, and made them made him feel welcome in New York. I think was great. We actually, personally, I thought we had a better attendance overall at the New York International, including from international participants, than I was expecting.
Really?
And it was very active. Sam was busy buying a bunch of stuff. I was busy taking people out and being friendly. So it was great to be back. I love coin shows. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to be substituted by the metaverse, for example. I think people are going to want to be there physically with their friends. And also, we don't need to have these auctions physically at the locations anymore, but we do enjoy having lot viewing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for the consigners that we have physical lot viewing, because a lot of people still want to physically see the coins, and we have them available. So
right, as we were saying, eye appeal really matters, right?
Absolutely.
Not just the grade. And so sometimes, as good as the photos might be on the website, it doesn't really hold a candle to seeing the coin in hand.
We're 95% there with online with coins, where you can you're close to 100% with making as good as a decision with what we have online as if you had your coin in your hand. Right. And of course, anyone can always call Samurai or any of us here at Heritage and ask our opinion, ask them to take a look. I send a lot of WhatsApp videos to people of coins so they can have a video visual of it as well. So, anything.
What's that last 5% to get it over the is it the 3D printing of coins on demand so you can view them at home?
That's going to be difficult, because that's like the human eye, like all of us are different. So it's always it's never going to be 100%, but we're definitely as close as anyone else, and probably closer than most. So
talk about a couple of highlights from January real quick, the things that you were amazed by, delighted by, tickled by.
Yeah, so one of the first things that I sent to Tommy to pull up was the Alexander Diestator that we had there. That was a Choice AU fine style that sold for, I think 156,000 or so.
Yes.
And that was, there it is. So we had a higher grade example in 2015 that was Mint State Star, Strike 5, Surface 5, fine style, sell for a fraction of that. And this selling for 150,000 plus was really just an amazing result for this coin, because 5 years ago it was not even a third of that. And I think that goes back to something I was saying, I think in the last video that we did, where someone had asked, undervalued areas of the market. And I had said, I thought Greek gold was undervalued, ancient Greek gold coins. And this sort of illustrates that the market is sort of catching up to where I think it should be, like appreciating this material, because that is a very rare coin in that condition. The market sort of moved a little faster than I was expecting, but
somebody did ask, by the way, before we began, about the rising value of ancient golds.
Yeah,
about that, something that they had a particular interest in, and are you seeing a significant impact or a significant increase in that particular?
Yeah, and
category?
That Alexander Diestator is a great example of that, where, as I said, 5 years ago, that coin would have been worth, in my opinion, a third of that or thereabouts. And the market is sort of moving up to appreciate that rarity, because if you look at, I would be surprised in the entire world if there were more than a few hundred Alexander Diestators in existence.
Really?
Something like that, yeah.
I know you also want to talk about the Victoria 1847 Gothic crown in January. Talk a little bit about that.
So the Gothic crown, as Cris and I know well, has had sort of a steady climb in value for what, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And we always think, okay,
What's that?
Can you go to your camera?
We don't want to go to my camera. Apparently, we've lost camera here in the last minute or so. So, of course, that's the way things tended to go here.
Okay.
So, gentlemen, I'll put the camera right on you. You don't need me.
Hello, everybody.
Well, I tell you what, we've actually been here an hour, so I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. But while everybody's looking at the two of you, do me a favor. Tell them how to get a hold of you.
Okay, so you can email me at chris@ha.com, no H, CRIS @ha.com, or call me at 214-409-1661.
My email address, email's usually the best way to get a hold of me, is SAMS@ha.com. But if you want to try calling, it's 214-409-1524.
Well, gentlemen, an hour felt like 5 minutes. I know we can go a
It's
long
true.
time. And if you want to look at the Indian Maher, hell, you just have to go to ha.com and look it up. It's the 1841, by the way. I did not purchase it, but it's certainly a beautiful coin. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. We'll do one of these in the next couple months.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And lucky you didn't have to see me at the end.